Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose. I'm so happy that you decided to join us for another great edition today. Today we're going to be speaking about youth, and we're very happy to be joined by Shiloh Lundahl. He's a licensed clinical social worker and the director of Parent Arizona and Counseling Services. Thank you so much for joining us, Shiloh.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here and to share a little bit about youth and your expertise, considering you work hand in hand with youth and families all the time. And so before we get started, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit with the viewing audience about yourself.
Sure. Well, as you said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and so I work a lot with families, with children and their parents. I have some specialized training in working with the birth through 6 age group, and I work a lot with foster and adoptive parents and their children, because a lot of times they will have just a lot more needs because of the traumas and things that they went through. And so I help the parents kind of work through their traumas and help their children work through their own traumas. And so that's a lot what I do.
Wow, that is great. And so you definitely have a lot of hands-on experience then, and you've probably seen a lot of things and have all sorts of stories. And if you want to share some of those later, you can, with some good positive things you've seen come out of kids. But then we'll go ahead and get into the first topic here. But thank you again for coming and taking time to be with us and our viewing audience. And for you at home, today we're speaking about youth. And our first topic is helping your child develop a positive self-concept. Typically, whenever you hear people say that, it's more building positive self-esteem. What is it to truly build a child's self-concept, and what does that mean in essence to you? Because that was what you had sent me.
Sure. Well, self-esteem and self-concept are pretty similar. And so it's basically just someone's belief about themselves, whether they're capable, whether they're loved and accepted. Oftentimes, parents will want their kids to have a good self-esteem. And you know, if kids start feeling bad about themselves or start saying things like I'm dumb or I'm stupid or I can't do it, parents often feel very uncomfortable with that, and so they'll want their kids to feel better about themselves. And so sometimes they do sort of praise, such as, oh no, you did a good job, or things are it's all gonna work out, it's all gonna be okay. And sometimes these kids just don't feel like it is. They feel like when their parents say you did a good job, and if they didn't do a good job, the kids know that they didn't do a good job, and so they feel like their parents aren't being truthful to them.
Yes.
And so one way of helping a child develop a healthy self-concept is to do 2 things. Basically, self-concept is created from 2 beliefs. The first is, I'm capable. And the second is, I'm unconditionally loved and accepted. So one thing that parents can do in order to help their kids develop a healthy self-concept is to allow them to go out, to explore, to experience things, and then to welcome them back, to come back and check in with them. And so a really great example of this, a really great picture of it, is from the Circle of Security. And so the Circle of Security was developed by Cooper, Hoffman, and Powell. And what they show is they show this child coming out from the parent and going to explore. And this might look like an 18-month-old or a 2-year-old going out from the parent, walking, and then they fall down. Then they look back at the parent to find out, am I still okay, right? And then the parent, with this warm expression, says, yeah, you're okay, you're okay. And the child feels, okay, I am okay. And they can go out and they can explore, but they can always come back in to the parent. And so it's a going out to explore and a coming back in that helps kids develop the sense of security. And that is directly related to their self-concept.
And so the way that this explains, we're going to show it on the screen here, is secure base, secure haven. It's building that security net for a child that really makes them feel comfortable and secure with themselves. How do you do that as a parent? How do you know that they are, how do you make them know that they're safe?
Well, the first thing is kids need parents that feel confident that their children can go out to explore, okay? And so parents, as they support their children's exploration, the child feels confident that they can go out and do that. But the parent watches over the child, right? The parent just doesn't let the child go out, you know, a 2 or 3-year-old go out and play in the street, go and do those things. No, the parent's right there, watching over, protecting the child, but allowing the child to have that ability to explore. And so as kids do that, they develop this belief that they can do things and that they are capable. So one example that I have is with my own son, and he is 5 now. But before that, when he was about 3 or 4, we had one rule in our house that had to do with breakfast. And it was before breakfast, you had to get up, make your bed, clean your room, and get dressed. And this is even for, you know, our little kids. And so he would come to me and say, hey Dad, can I get some breakfast? And I say, sure. As soon as your room is clean, your bed is made, and you're dressed. And he said, but I can't make my bed by myself. And so I say, okay, well, I'll come up and I'll make half. And so he makes half and I make half. And then, so we're doing this together. He's feeling good about that. And then he comes down and has breakfast. But then after a little while, what would happen is he would come out of his room in the morning with this big smile and he'd say, hey Dad, guess what? I'd say, what? He said, I made my bed by myself, I cleaned my room, and I'm dressed. And he just had this feeling of, I'm capable. And then I'd have him come over, I'd give him a big hug, a high five, and say, nice job, nice job.
And so it's giving your children the ability to really build that self-confidence in themselves and letting them know that they can have responsibility and they can accomplish things on their own whenever you entrust it to them. And that's something that's so important with children, is that when do you know where to draw the limits of that as far as letting them go out and explore? That's something that goes even beyond a 3 or 4-year-old. I think that's something, even as they get older, they want even more to go out and explore and to be out in the world. As a parent, it's a dangerous world out there, and I'm sure that you know that, having little children, you know, you want to make sure you know where they are. How do you know where to draw the lines as a parent to where there's not resentment built from the child and there's not fear on your part, but there's still a healthy relationship there?
Yeah, good question. A lot of parents have a lot of anxiety about letting their kids go out from them because they have a belief that the world really isn't safe. A good example of this is in the cartoon, the Disney cartoon, Finding Nemo. And so, so you have Nemo's dad who had this traumatic experience, and all of the eggs except for Nemo were eaten along with his wife. And so he had this belief that the ocean is not safe. And so he continued to communicate that belief to Nemo, that the ocean wasn't safe. And so he tried to hover around Nemo and protect him from, you know, basic living. And so it made it difficult for Nemo. So one of the first things to do is to recognize, okay, where's my anxiety coming from? Why is it that I'm having a hard time allowing my child to go out and do some healthy things that really aren't that dangerous? One example that I'll give parents is, well, this is also an example for little kids, and then I'll give you an example for older kids. When a 2 or 2.5-year-old starts to climb up on a chair, a lot of parents get really nervous about that and say, no, get down from the chair, you're going to hurt yourself. But the truth is, being able to stand on a chair is a life skill. So, you know, we do that when we're changing a light bulb or whatever. Being able to stand on a chair is going to be important at some point. And also, the likelihood that the child will fall from the chair and get seriously hurt is not really high.
Especially if you're there making sure they're okay and allowing them to do it, but in a close enough vicinity.
And you know, it's not that, I mean, if it's going to be tile or marble, then, you know, you also want to take that in consideration. But usually, you know, just short chairs, you know, a child can stand on that, right? And then they feel, hey, look at me, I'm standing on a chair. And they feel good about themselves, right? So it's important that the parent can just check their own anxiety level. And they can watch over and help the child be able to do those things that the child's going to need to do. Later on, you know, with other examples of kids, going out to friends' houses, and trying out in sports and things like that. Sometimes some parents have a really hard time letting their kids try out in sports because they could get hurt. And that is true, they can get hurt. But for every child that goes out and has a good time and a good experience with sports, there are few that do really get hurt. And so just understanding that, I don't have control over whether my child's going to get hurt in their life. And if I keep them from being able to experience things in life, I can actually do a lot of damage in not letting them create resentment and help them or create the belief in them that they aren't capable of doing things, which can be a lot more damaging than getting a broken arm.
Yes, and so if a child does mess up, which every child does, every kid makes mistakes, every kid will do something they're not supposed to. A lot of times, especially whenever they're younger, it's out of pure curiosity. How do you discipline your child so that they know the difference between right and wrong? Because we can love our children and support our children, but there is a point where where someone has to be a parent and where you have to discipline them. What is the correct clinical standpoint of how to do that without causing damage to them emotionally or in any other way?
Well, that's where the bottom half of the circle is so important. Our kids go out to experience and they're going to make mistakes. And so as they make a mistake and they try to come back to us, if we are shaming, if we are angry with the child, then they will feel that it's not safe to come back to us, that they've done something and now they're not really accepted. Whereas kids should develop the belief that they're accepted unconditionally. And so when they do make a mistake, we can bring them close, love them up, help them feel safe, and then we can teach them as things are going well. So I teach parents to teach their kids values and all of those other things when things are going well. But when they've just made a mistake and they have a strong emotion, sadness or shame or fear, to bring them close to you, help them know that you're going to love and accept them no matter what, and then set the limit. So an example might be, a kid was told not to, what would be a good example of this? Not to get out the markers. Okay, again, this is a younger child, but not to get out the markers, and you come back and there's marker all over the wall, right? So big mistake, and sometimes we as parents, we get really angry and frustrated. But when you signed up to be a parent, you also signed up to have marker on the wall at some point. So just to recognize that, to calm yourself down, and to be able to say, to bring them in close and let them know, definitely not okay. Help them know that they're still loved and accepted, and then say, how are we going to fix this?
Maybe you don't have permanent markers in the house, just water markers.
Sure, that's a good one.
Yeah. No, but that's very true, and it's knowing that fine line between. So in other words, you can let them know that they've done wrong, but maybe as a parent, if you maybe have a short temper, which is being realistic, a lot of parents will come home from work and they don't want to deal with it and they get frustrated. Maybe walk away for a second as an adult and kind of gather yourself so you don't lose your temper and yell and say things you don't mean or that you'll regret later.
The best thing that a parent can do immediately is take 2 or 3 deep breaths. And so what that'll do is help get oxygen back up to the brain, help relax, and then be able to approach the problem in a more responsive way rather than reactive way. And so what we do is, again, bring them in close, help them feel that they're still loved and accepted, and then we let them know what they can do to fix the problem. So by providing choices such as, so what do you think you can do to fix it? And then we had this problem happen with my little girl, and she ended up needing to go and buy paint in order to go and fix the problem. But also what's neat about that is she developed the belief of, I make mistakes, but I can also fix my mistakes. And no matter what I do, I'm still loved and accepted.
And so as they get older, if they do make a mistake, they know if it gets to worse mistakes or they go out and do something they shouldn't, they know they can still come back to you as parents and that you'll still love them. And that's so good, Shiloh. Thank you. That first segment, it was great. If you have any questions at home, I know that Shiloh or his office would be happy to answer them. It's Shiloh Lundahl, and he is a licensed clinical social worker and the director of Parent Arizona and Counseling Services. And the email is info@parentarizona.com. And there are 2 websites. The first is parentarizona.com, and the second is ArizonaFamilyInstitute.com. Thank you so much at home for watching. We'll be right back after this short break.